So let's understand what are the objectives of sales quota. I would say this is just a repetition of the points that we had just covered. So this is communicating the desired level of performance. So what is this desired level of performance? Because every marketing unit knows what is supposed to be delivered from their side. Your branch knows what is their target, that is communicated to them. Your executive knows what is the number expected from their side, what is the sales target is expected from their side. Your distributor knows about it, your retailer knows about it. So sales target carries the objective of communicating the desired number of desired level of performance of every marketing unit who is a part of the sales network. Now we already talked about the performance appraisal tool, because this is about performance assessment. Sales quota, sales target achievement always gives you an idea, organization, an idea that how much each marketing unit is contributing. So what is the level of their performance? What is the kind of assessment we can make on the performance of each person towards the sales results or the sales target. Now it also carries an objective of motivating the entire sales force. We had a discussion in the previous slide also, we spoke about it. It carries some motivational tool. So definitely your sales target management and administration should have a focus on the motivating the people who are in the sales profession, because ultimately this is where the employee, the executive would become more serious towards his work, more result oriented, more sincere in his work, and more result generating. So sales numbers will get the result out of this. So make sure that your sales target has an objective of motivating the executives, motivating your distributor, motivating your retailer, motivating your branch. So that will eventually give the best sales results for the organization. Now this should also have an objective of sales control, because we spoke about already. There are times at which you will realize, your organization will realize, the sales control is losing out. Sometimes it could be related to the expenses side of the sales activities. You might be selling a number of products in the market, but it doesn't generate a reasonable amount of profit, which actually indicates that the expenses are going up. Your sales numbers are happening there, the sales numbers are taking place, but the expected profit is not what happening in the market. So that is where you'll have to see that the expenses should be minimized. So your executives should be informed that in certain areas the expenses are going up. This is where you have to make a control, and the company in a systematic way, they will come up with some kind of a measure to control the expenses of sales activities. So in many ways this will control the whole sales activities. And finally it ensures, one of the objective of the sales target is to ensure the effectiveness of the executive's work. In many times the sales person's efforts are revolving around the achievement of the sales volume, the sales numbers. Many companies are not realizing the entire effort of the employee or the executive. Companies will not give enough importance to other kind of activities which are considered as non-selling activities. So the organizations may not give a reasonable amount of importance to those activities. So in such organizations, the effectiveness of an employee's effort, executive's effort, may not be recognized. So that is a wrong way of keeping the objective of sales quota or sales target. So sales target must ensure that the whole effort of managing a customer, interacting with a customer, identifying a customer, collecting competitors' information from the market, or reporting about their performance, weekly wise report, monthly wise report. So there are many activities as part of this sales profession. So every activity of a sales job should be given sufficient amount of importance, so that the entire effort of the executive is ensured that is effective and that is it. So I think this is the most important part of sales quota or sales target, because it talks about different types of sales quota or different methods of sales quota which are practiced and adopted by many organizations, many successful organizations. By understanding these various types of sales quota, I think you will eventually become a good sales specialist, because you will come to know how the sales executives can be managed effectively, how the entire process of sales target management and sales quota achievement can be ensured. So I think the people who are becoming sales professionals and people who are becoming the sales leaders or the branch managers of sales, so they will have to seriously learn these techniques, learn these different types, so that they can practice, they can make use of these types when they reach to such positions. So let's see what are those four categories which are listed there. The first one is sales volume quota, then comes financial quota, that's another method of doing it. Then comes activity quota, which is another type of sales quota, and finally there is a combination quota. Let's see more in detail about it. Now if you look at the sales volume quota, there are three subcategories. You can see there are three different ways in which most of the organizations are practicing this. So one method of sales volume quota is rupee or currency sales volume quota. So what do you mean by that? Rupee or currency sales quota. In some organizations, you can see that the number of products are very high. The product portfolio is huge. They have a huge number of product lines, and they also handle so much of products in the market. In such cases, allocating numbers for each product, allocating a certain units of products to be sold in the market and assigning this to an executive will be a complicated process. It becomes a complex process, because he has to come up with if suppose if the company is having 100 products, he has to make out the report for this 100 products. He has to monitor the product movement of this 100 products. So he has to look after various retailers who are handling these various products. So in such a case, even if the product is more than 20 or 25, the process becomes very tough. So in such cases, certain organizations will adopt a technique. They say that, okay, instead of the product numbers to be achieved, they will say that it is about the revenue to be generated. They will specify in a particular month, the executive has to come up with 1 lakh units of revenue. A sales is measured or expressed in terms of the rupee or currency format, so that the executive has to bring 1 lakh revenue to this organization as his target. So that's one method of keeping is rupee method or currency method of putting the sales quota or sales target. The second is the direct method, sales volume method, which is more familiar to everyone. So you're supposed to sell a certain specific number of units in the market. If the product portfolio is little small, if the number of products are very small, you can consider this as a perfect method, where each and every employee has to be responsible for selling a few units of the product. Sales volume has to be generated. It's not about the revenue part of it. It's about the number of products to be sold in a particular month or in a particular quarter. So that is about the sales volume quota. And finally, it becomes another one. The third category in this one is a point quota system. I think there are organizations, you can see that in certain organizations where you can have both expensive products and also the non-expensive products. So what happens is that if you keep a kind of a revenue system for such organizations, people will give more importance to big ticket items, so that they will ignore the items which are not hugely expensive. So what happens is that your small ticket items may not be given enough importance. And if you take up the second method, what happens is that many times your small ticket items are very easy to sell in the market. Big ticket items are very difficult to sell in the market. So what happens is that people will sell, the executives will sell more small ticket items, so which is very, very easy to convince the customer and sell it to the customer. So your big ticket, big costly items, expensive items get ignored in the market, and sometimes your competitor may utilize this opportunity. So they will gradually dominate the markets for the. In such a case, the organizations will develop a different system, that is what we call it as point system, where each product, whether it's expensive or non-expensive, they will attach a point towards it, so that when you sell an expensive item, you will be credited with 5 points. When you sell a non-expensive item, you may get only 1 point. So that finally, when the target for an executive would be around 100, imagine if it is 100 for a particular month, he must ensure that he is giving enough importance to both the products. Then only he will be able to, I mean, he can make a balance for it. For example, he will realize that he has to sell a certain number of high ticket items, expensive items, whereas he also has to come up with a reasonable selling of the non-expensive items also. So both the items, both the products, type of products, expensive or expensive product, both are getting the movement in the market. So this is the third aspect of a sales volume quota. Now let's see the next type of sales quota or sales target, that is financial quota or financial target. So as you can see there are two types of methods which the organizations usually develop. One is expense quota and the next one is net profit quota. So what is this expense quota? So we were talking about the revenue quota, we were talking about the sales volume quota, we were talking about the points quota. So whatever be the system you are developing or you are adopting, you are responsible to bring a control over your expenses, because you are selling a product. That selling activity is incurring a few expenses part of it. So you may be selling hundreds of units, or you may be generating 1 lakh revenue, or you may be having enough points, both expensive and non-expensive products in the market. But whatever be the kind of sales that you do in the market, if you do not have the control over your expenses, it doesn't bring any benefit to the organization. So it gives you an understanding about the financial expenses which can be uh, spent for a particular product to be sold in the market. So it keeps a focus, I mean control on the expenses side of selling. So every employee is assigned with a particular amount of expense for completing his transaction. Usually this is practiced along with the sales volume quota planning, so that the employee will be careful in his spendings. The employee will be more cautious in his expenses, so that he comes up with the best effort in his sales. So he will be more responsible for bringing some effective sales in the market. So otherwise, if you do not have the control of the or the target in it, what happens is that employee will sell number of products, but he may not have any control over the the second method of putting the financial quota is based on the net profit quota, where we all know that what is net profit. So net profit is directly linked to the sales efforts. For example, if an executive, he sells 100 units of products, and or the revenue part of the amount that he is contributing to the organization, and that will be taken into account, and also his selling expenses will be also considered. So what are those selling expenses? Sometimes it could be his traveling expenses, it would be his lodging expenses, it would be his expenses for the customer follow-up, customer contact, or the customer service that he is handling. So in so many cases, those selling expenses are there. So the amount of the revenue that he has generated, and the selling expenses, so by subtracting the selling expenses, so the employee is, I mean executive is contributing a certain amount of profit to the organization. So what happens is that will be considered as the net profit he is contributing to the organization. So if you're putting a sales quota in such a way, the problem is that many times the executive will try to avoid a few activities, because when he avoid few non-selling activities, he gets more net profit. He can gain more net profit. For example, he doesn't travel too much, so he may miss a customer. He may not be traveling to meet a customer. He may avoid reaching to a customer and interacting with the customer. He may skip customer service. In some cases it becomes a threat for the company, it becomes a problem for the company, because eventually such ignorance from the side of the executive will force you to lose a customer. Another important method of or a type of sales quota is activity quota. So I would say activity quota is highly crucial to an organization, because there are selling activities and non selling activities in a sales process. Many times executives who are in the sales profession, they give more importance to selling activities only, and they will purely ignore the non-selling activities, because that is not directly generating any sales results. And if you do not have a sales quota which is based on the non-selling activities and also selling activities, the company also will face, the organization will also have some tough time. I'll give you an example. If your job is to get 10 customers, if your executive is responsible to get 10 customers, probably he has to reach 100 prospective customers. If he has 100 prospective customers, eventually it may become 10 real customers or 10 actual customers. So how will you get this 100 prospective customers? First of all, so he must be reaching to some databases. He must be collecting the details of for this prospective customers through various databases. So he has to put some effort for it. Then he has to call all these people every day. He has to call at least 20 people or 30 people, so that in couple of days or in 3-4 days he'll be able to complete the entire 100 prospective customers. And finally, after completing the calls, he may get 50 real little more interested customers. They may give you an appointment, so you will have to visit in the next 10 days. Probably you have to visit 5 prospective customers every day, so that in 10 days you are able to complete the entire 50 little more interested customers, and through which finally you will be able to reach to your 10 actual customers, and that would be your target for the month. So imagine if you do not have the non-selling activity quota which is specified by the company. What happens is that the interest or the enthusiasm of the executive will terribly come down. He may not reach to this 100 customers. He may not call 5 prospective customers every day, or he may not interact with 5 customers every day, and he may not call 10 or 20 or 30 customers on an everyday basis. So what happens is that your company has to fix selling activities quota, also non-selling activities quota, where the non-selling activity quota should be specifying every day the executive is supposed to call at least 20-30 customers. And after that, every month the customer 5 days, the executive should spend 5 days to visit the prospective customers, where he has to interact a minimum of 5 customers, 5 prospective customers. So these numbers will make him more responsible in his work, more sincere in his work, and he will realize unless he doesn't put effort in his job, he may not be able to reach to the final selling activity quota, which is also specified by the company, and that may be 10 actual customers. So this was one just example. Another example which is related to selling and non-selling activities. In some cases, if you're handling products, your job is to sell few units of products. You are handling 20-25 products in the market, and you are responsible to send daily reports, weekly reports, monthly reports, and these report generating process or reporting process is tedious. These employees, executives will be hugely they're not at all interested to develop these reports, sending it to the superiors, getting their feedbacks, getting their firing. So this is considered as one of the most irritating job in the sales profession. So executives may avoid such a work. So that what happens is that the organizations, if they're not putting the sales target or sales quota based on this activity, non-selling activity, so they will not be getting updation about these sales reports. They will not be knowing about what is the achievement of their regional wise particular monthly data, what is the branch wise sales results of a particular day, of a particular month, of a particular week. This is highly important because they have to put some comparison, they have to make some analysis, and based on this they have to take some decisions. Similarly, the executives are supposed to gather competitors information, their activities in the market, their opinions, customers feedbacks, competitors, I mean retailer dealers opinions and their feedbacks, their involvement in a sales contest. So many such reports are required and expected from the side of the executive, and these are all considered as the non-selling activities. And if you do not have a clear picture about the non-selling activity quota, the executive will ignore all these jobs. So make sure that the sales quota is also fixed, or is also arranged, or is also designed based on activity quota, where both selling activity and non-selling activity both are considered equally and both are given as a target to the executive.